I'd like to welcome you tonight for a conversation with MarleneCreates, an environmental artist and a poet and many things in between, who came to be with us from Newfoundland, where she has worked and lived since 1985. Welcome, Marlene. My name is Marketa Holtebrinck. I am a fourth year printmaking and sculpture student at Oak University. And I'll briefly welcome you and make an acknowledgement, and then we proceed to the conversation. This is the second of the 3 interviews with senior Canadian artists that the student-led initiative Encounter with Artists brings to Oak University. In November, we talked to the doyen of Canadian queer photography, Evergon, and later in March, we'll welcome the transdisciplinary artist, Maria Upfield. I'd like to thank 2 people whose engagement has made this possible: Max Dean for mentorship and much more, Derek Sullivan, Stephen Fosther, and Jessie Lee for organizing, Pixie, Mudge, Massey for sponsoring, and our great team of upper year students for all the hard work that everyone has put in. Before I pass the mic today, who'll introduce you to MarleneCreates and her work, and our interviewers, I'd like to acknowledge our presence here at Oak University, whose 150th anniversary we're to celebrate this year. As artists, educators, and learners on the traditional land and waters of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Métis, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nations. This territory is part of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum, a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. We remember those who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. The city was built on stolen land and labor of Black, Indigenous, and many racialized people. As we proceed into the conversations of this evening, I encourage everyone tonight to commit to engaging mindfully with not only the land we are on, but also the people around us, so that we may practice respect and reciprocity as a standard within all our relationships as we collectively journey towards reconciliation. Thank you for coming, and please welcome Day, who will introduce you to Marlene.
Hi, everybody. I spilled paint on myself today. That's what's on my pants, and this is intentional. I'm a sculpture student, and I love to speak from my heart and wear my heart on my sleeve and my face. And I'm here to introduce Marlene today and begin the conversation with Marlene. So, hi everyone. We're all here, sat, waiting to see our super artist. She is awesome and a friend with the world. Marlene walks, listens, writes poems, and researches vernacular in parallel with her environmental art. She is a person who holds a million titles, yet still goes by her name, Marlene. Recently, she was awarded the Governor General's Award for Lifetime Artistic Achievement in Visual Arts and has also written a book. She's given heaps and heaps of her life towards volunteering and founding an art association in her hometown of Portugal Cove. Her life is a joy to share. She's one of Canada's most influential and special environmental artists around. And so here is MarleneCreates. I'd like to begin with an artwork. I think her specialness shines here. It's titled Spring 2003. We become a very, very sweet pond. As the pond sees Marlene, we are the pond's eyes, and we feel alive. Inspecting her art, one will see place embedded everywhere. In 1985, her feet brought her to Newfoundland. Within this aliveness, this province, she shares her art and life to this day. Now, I will bring up that much of Marlene's story is untellable. All the experiences only seen by her, that only she can share. Her story is told best by Marlene herself. But I will try my very best. Let's start. Like every one of us in this room, Marlene began life as a baby. And since her birth in the Montreal suburbs, her artist heart pumped strong. Interviews with her on young days speak on small hands carrying wildlife magazines, drawing at the YMCA. Growing now still, drawings have brought her into careers filled with life. Poetry, photography, and writing, like with her Newfoundland treasury of terms for ice and snow, brickle, niche, and knobby. Since the 70s, Marlene's found herself in nature, alongside ancient monumental stones and vast, vast oceans, filled with experience. On grass where she rests her head, Marlene has found her art and shared it with us. In 1979, Marlene released one of her first works, Paper, Stone, and Water. It offered a gentle intervention into land art of the time. She refused using machinery to construct these works, and she unplaced what she made after the work was made. Places spoke to Marlene as a traveler. She wrote with footsteps and memories. An interest in community led her to making this piece. The distance between 2 points is measured in memories. 1989. Memory maps were remembered for Marlene by elders in Native as well as white settler communities. Marlene went with their maps, journeyed with their memories. She brought back art of the land and stories to tell us. She wrote them and installed them with the art. Her life as an adventurer would move in many ways. Interests would lead into worlds of plaques and signs, prints and panels on roads in her mind, our eyes indulge. She would create print works, histories within a question. In her work, questions about the place. Marlene would subtly uncover who is absent and unseen in place. A very special year was 2002. In this year, Marlene moved into 6 acres of natural Newfoundlandian boreal forest. Blast Hole Pond River would become Marlene's muse. And through virtual walkthroughs and poetry readings, through sounds of her camera clicking, the world would be introduced to her boreal poetry garden. This is her place. It is with this place that she now makes her art. This piece, about 8.5 minutes from the sun to the moon to the river to my face to the camera, is the sound of her heart in poem. Clear night, 2 a.m., the September, full moon, a bright companionable sphere. As I step into the river, In high rubber waders, it drifts on the current, glints, and scatters among the ripples. A back eddy pool gathers its shape, reflects the white light up to my face. Then through the lens, while all around me, the boreal forest is black, lacy spires. Marlene speaks, becomes and hears the land's heartbeat. Her voice is her photograph. In her place, she manifests science with art. She remarks, a friend of hers remarked, in the boreal forest, the distinction between the arts and sciences seems easier to collapse. And with this artist talk, hopefully, the difference between new artists, young artists, and artists still young in soul collapses in her wake. She has found us. You have found us. Here, very happily, I introduce our conversations with our wonderful artists, MarleneCreates.
Hi everyone, my name is Sasha Yakovleva. I'm a fourth year drawing and painting at Oka University. Tonight there will be 3 separate body of work and I will be focusing on memory mapping.
Hi everyone, my name is Alessio Duclaux. I'm a art history and printmaking student here at Oka University as well. And I'm very excited to be talking about Signs of Our Time and that body of work, so I'm very interested to talk about that.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Evan Sagman. I am an interdisciplinary artist and curator based in Toronto, studying sculpture and installation at OCAD. Tonight, I will be talking to the lovely Marlene about her 1982 work, Sleeping Places. So, Marlene, to start us off, do you think you could introduce that work for us?
Sure. I do have a couple of things I need to say before I launch into that. I'm really very happy to be part of this special program. And I want to thank the generous sponsor, Lady Elizabeth Mudge, Massey Shaw, for supporting, basically that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, due to her generosity. I want to thank Max Dean for inviting me and for working with your students to prepare this event. And many thanks to the students for all the attention you've paid to my work. An artist couldn't wish for more. So this is my version of a land acknowledgement for the province where I'm living. This is a map of the island of Newfoundland with Mi'kmaq place names. It's a map of Uktahumguk, which is the Mi'kmaq name for the island of Newfoundland, and it's the word in the top left-hand corner starting with the letter K. It means land across the water. And the map includes some Mi'kmaq place names that were retrieved by talking to Mi'kmaq elders. So this is an example of alternative mapping, which is also called participatory mapping, counter mapping, de-mapping, and possibly even radical mapping. Every map tells a story, and alternative maps tell alternative stories. The province also includes Labrador, which is approximately 3 times the size of the island, but it only has about 30,000 residents. And it's the homeland of the Innu, who formerly were called Montagnais and Naskapi Indians. And the northern part of Labrador is where the Inuit live. In recent years, hundreds of their place names have also been retrieved and mapped. The archaeological evidence has shown that the provincial territory has been inhabited for over 8,000 years by a succession of indigenous people. Sleeping places. that's an installation view of 25 black and white photographs. Do you want me to talk about them first?
I love that.
And then okay. So in 1982, I was living in Ottawa, and I traveled around the island of Newfoundland. And I was camping as I went, and I started in Port au Basque, where the ferry landed, and I traveled completely around the island till I got back to the place where I started. And I was camping. And in the morning, I would simply photograph the impression that my body left on the landscape. Just from the weight of my body, just from one night of sleeping. And as I traveled around the island, the vegetation changed, of course, so you see different textures in the vegetation. And when I've shown these photographs in Newfoundland, I've been asked if I found the places where the moose lay down to sleep. But no, it was me. It was my own body.
Yeah, so I'm really curious, when you went on this trip, did you go in with the intention of making this work, or was it sort of conceived through the magic of the moment you were in?
I think I did it, it was a response to my being directly in the landscape. Yeah, I just took the photographs. Yeah, the idea came to me when I was there. Yeah.
I'm really curious because the imprint is a little different in each photo. What was your sleeping setup? Like, were you bare on the ground, or?
Well, first of all, I should tell you, it was just me.
Yeah.
I was traveling by myself. Sometimes I would be in a provincial park. And those areas in the provincial parks in Newfoundland, unfortunately, they're mostly set up for people in campers. And they have gravel in each of the camping sites. So it was a bit tricky to find ground that wasn't gravel. But then that's not the majority of them. The majority of them were not done in provincial parks because I soon came to discover that there was all this gravel in the individual campsites. So then I just started I was just sleeping wherever, really. I would be getting near the end of the day and I'd realize, okay, it's about time to find somewhere to spend the night. Sometimes I would stop and ask somebody if I could sleep on their land. I think I should tell my strategy of traveling as a woman by yourself and camping. So your first instinct might be to go hide yourself away somewhere. That might be your first instinct. And that's exactly the wrong thing to do. Because when you're in rural Newfoundland or rural anywhere, everybody sees everything. If they see a different car go down the road, they know. They've seen it. You put yourself in the most conspicuous place so everybody knows where you are. And if anybody means to do you any harm, everyone sees what's going on. They'll hear whatever. That's what you do. You don't go hide away. You put yourself out, like not right in the middle of the town, but over at the edge of the town where you know everyone can see you. That's the best advice I have for you tonight.
Love, that's a wonderful strategy. So I'm really curious, this is such a wonderfully ephemeral and transient work. Do you see this work as process-based performance, the documentation? What part of this process is the most important to you?
Okay, I'm gonna say something that maybe sounds a bit shocking. I'm an artist, yes, but I actually don't have an imagination.
Oh, intriguing.
It's true. I don't have an imagination. My work does not come from my imagination. I don't think the world needs me to add anything to it from my imagination. All I do is I just pay attention to what's already there. So this is an example of just paying attention to what was there, what I saw. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
Okay.
So there's 25 photos in this series.
Yeah.
I'm really curious, what is sort of revealed after 25 that you don't know after the first?
Well, there's a shift in the season because it actually took me more than 25 days to travel around the island. So now you're going to ask me, well, what about those other days?
Right.
Okay, I'll answer that in a second. So there's a shift in the seasons because I actually spent 2 months traveling around the island. So there's a shift from early summer to late summer. So if you're really, really attentive, you'll notice like something that is a wildflower. Okay, I'll give you an example, crackerberries, also known as bunchberries. So in the beginning, one of the first photographs, they're in bloom. And at the end of the series, they actually have the berries on them, the exact same plant. So it does cover that whole transition in the season from early summer to late summer.
Right.
What was I going to tell you?
Yeah, I am curious what else you were getting up to when you weren't documenting
Oh, yeah.
the series.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I kind of got, well, so when I was traveling around in rural Newfoundland, I would stop and talk to people, and mostly elderly people, because I was really interested in their stories. And they would say, oh, my dear, you're not sleeping out there tonight. You're coming in here. You're going to stay in here with us, you know. And then they'd say, well, no, you can't leave tomorrow because I've got a boat planned to take you out, whatever. You know, I literally got adopted all around the island. And sometimes I'd say, no, I'm sorry, I really do have to sleep out in the field because I'm working on an art project.
Yeah. I love that. So at what point did you decide the series was complete?
Well, when I got back around to Port aux Basques,
Right.
where I started from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really curious, like, what sort of facilitates the completion of the work? Is it when you do the documentation itself, or is it the display? Is it the action?
Ah, boy, that's a very deep philosophical question
Right.
you're asking me. When is it complete? I don't know. I'm getting less and less involved in actually like producing material things, which
Yeah.
we'll get to when we talk about the Boreal Poetry Garden. So I guess like in this kind of case, when I have the work printed, framed, then it's done.
Yeah.
It's completed. Yeah.
Right.
Is that
No,
good?
that's
Yeah.
great. I'm curious, at the time, what was your relationship to exhibiting in gallery spaces?
Well, I was very involved in artist-run centers for quite a long time. In fact, I started one in St. John's, Newfoundland, called Eastern Edge Gallery. Well, myself and we co-founded it, and Eastern Edge Gallery is going strong. I just can't get over how well it has done. So I would show, and I was in ANPAC, the Association of National Profit Artist-Run Centers. It was the national organization of nonprofit artist-run centers, you know. So A Space here in Toronto was one of the first ones. Eye Level in Halifax, Photographers Gallery out Regina, Saskatoon, Western Front out in Vancouver. So we were a very small, and I was with Saw Gallery in Ottawa at the time. So we were a very small group. And so we got to know each other, and that was a network for showing our work as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm curious so you have this wonderful grid here, so lovely and nicely organized, and then we have this little asymmetry in the installation. Can you tell me about that decision?
Okay, so you know what? Half of what I do, it's just the path of least resistance. It's a practical solution, and I've also discovered that the practical solutions are probably also the most environmental things to do. So, but that's not the reason for this. So the practical reason for this is I had 25 photographs.
Right.
If I had made 5 rows by 5 across. The top row was going to be too high to see.
I see.
So I made 4 rows with 6, and then there was an extra one. So I put it at the beginning.
Yeah, love it.
Is that okay, everybody?
No, that's great. So in your artist statement for this work, you talk about it being one of the most intimate works you've ever made. In my practice, I focus on intimacy a lot, but typically I'm talking about person to person, body to body. Your relation of intimacy is self and land. How would you define intimacy?
How would I?
How would you define intimacy in that context?
Oh, well, because the contact of my body with the land was extremely, visceral, right? And
Yeah.
also choosing where was I going to lie down. So you're trying to choose a piece of landscape that's just the dimensions of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And also taking safety into consideration, what I was saying before. It's simply that actual physical contact with the ground, with the land.
Yeah. This work was in your 2017 retrospective, Places, Paths, and Pauses. What was that experience like for you?
The retrospective?
Yeah.
Oh, it was, oh wow, it was fantastic. I kept saying to myself, I'm so glad I'm living long enough to see this happen.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful thing to have that happen. It really was. Yeah.
Yeah. How did it feel to review decades worth of work?
Oh. Well, is this the first person, second person, third person?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Well, looking at the arc of my work, the retrospective covered about 45 years. I came to realize something that I'd never really noticed before. My very, very early work, like the Sleeping Places and the Paper Stones and Water series that I did at the time, that was work that was done in what I would call the first person's voice. It was me and the landscape. And actually the paper in the Paper Stones and Water works represented my own temporary presence in the landscape. So then, when I started doing the work like in Northern Labrador, the distance between 2 points is measured in memories, and I was interviewing elderly people in Labrador about their memories of the landscape, I thought of that work as being done in the second person. It was me and the other person, having quite, I got quite attached to these elderly people in Northern Labrador that I interviewed. So that was work in the second person. Then there was a decade of work that we haven't talked about yet, but we're going to talk about, Signs of Our Time, which I just photographed found signs in the landscape. And I was interested in the relationship between this language that's inserted into the landscape and the surrounding terrain. And the fact that these signs are anonymous. We don't know who put them there. We don't know who made the decision. So I thought of that as work done in the third person. Then when I moved to the patch of boreal forest where I've been for the last 24 years, my first works there, like you saw at the very beginning, the thing I did in the spring with the waterfall looking back at me, I kind of moved back into the first person again, my own first person relationship with that terrain. And then, which I only realized when I was doing this retrospective, I got 3 trail cameras that are installed along the Blast Hole Pond River that capture wildlife. So I'm not even taking the photograph. So it's no person.
Yeah, that creates such a wonderful, wonderful art.
Oh, there we go. Oh, you're
gorgeous.
so quick, Darah. Great. So this is an example of work done with a trail camera. Like, I could never have taken that photograph of that snowshoe hare caught in midair. And it's crossing the Blast Hole Pond River there. The Blast Hole Pond River is frozen in the winter. And these are works that pair what's happening at ground level, in other words, the movement of wildlife, and the movement of celestial bodies overhead. So this one, the text on the right says, Mars near Venus in its crescent phase. So the trail cameras are digital cameras, and they register the date and the time that the animal triggered the camera. And then I have the Royal Astronomical Society handbook that tells me exactly what was happening in the overhead sphere at that time. So I'm trying to make a relationship between that infinity of natural occurrences.
Yeah, that's such a wonderful connection. Thank you so much. I really enjoy this work, and it's given me even a beautiful, deeper view of it. Speaking of signs of our time, I think it's my time to pass this off to the lovely Alessio.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes, so I am very curious about your Signs of Our Time work. So would you want to introduce a little bit about that work, talk a little bit more about it, and give a general overview as you did to
Sure.
Sitting Places?
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're jumping a whole decade from the sleeping places in the early landworks to Signs of Our Time. So I just put that up on the screen to make a reference, which I already have, to the series of works based on memory maps that other people drew for me. And the series is called The Distance Between 2 Points as Measured in Memories. Okay, Signs of Our Time. So this is the decade where I photographed, found signs right across Canada. I mean, we have this sense that signs are somehow generic, and I discovered they are not generic at all. There's very interesting local peculiarities in some signage. So this is an assemblage called Our Coastline is Natural and Scenic, and the title of each, this is one of a series of 13 assemblages. The title of each assemblage comes from the text on the sign. And the series is called Language and Land Use, and it was from Newfoundland. They're from Newfoundland, done in Newfoundland, 1994. So they're all signs, well, if they're not roadside signs, they're signs in places that the public has access to, like parks, provincial area, recreational areas, places like that. So in the assemblage, there's the panorama taken with 3 photographs. So I photographed to the left of the sign, to the right of the sign, and the middle photograph is always the sign. There's a handwritten panel underneath the middle sign. And in that handwritten panel, I'm revealing things about that site that I learned that are invisible from the photograph. Some of it is from overheard conversations that I heard in the place. And then there's natural objects collected there. In this case, it's some beach rocks. So we'll show that's the left-hand side. Those are big oil tanks from Irving Oil. The right-hand sign, a housing development, and then the sign was in the middle between. Okay, it says, our coastline is natural and scenic. Why spoil the look? Thank you for not littering. So the people here from Newfoundland are going to appreciate this. There's a real irony on this sign, and it happens to be the tulip in the top right-hand corner. This is in Grand Bank on the south coast of Newfoundland. Obviously, a tulip, well, whether or not it's natural is debatable, but it's definitely not part of the landscape, natural landscape on the far south coast of Newfoundland. The other irony is the word natural. It turns out that this shoreline was first settled by people from Brittany, Bretons, and they didn't build flakes to dry their fish. Flakes are just wooden platforms where you put your fish to dry. They actually would dry their fish right on the beach rocks. The beach rocks would heat up and then the fish would dry, being laid out on the beach rocks. This whole area here was all beach rocks that were hauled up by people. So this whole idea of natural is, well, I just find it so ironic. So the whole series is about looking at the invisible dimensions of landscape, so that if you look at a photograph of a landscape, you can't come to any conclusion about what's really happening there.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And I remember when I first, so kind of going through the different works, and I love the way that, when I was first looking at your sort of signs of our time and seeing how it progressed, it was so beautiful to see how different signs were being highlighted and the different environments that they were in, and how it shifted between different provinces, different places in Canada, which was something that I really, really enjoyed because I'm not Canadian to begin with, so it was really, really fascinating. So I obviously have a few questions as well. So sort of, I know you touched on this a bit, obviously in the introduction, but, so, I'm so curious as to kind of, what really drew you to the signs? What makes a sign worthy of a photo in your mind?
Oh, great. I think it might be my sense of humor.
Nice.
Because I found some of these signs, looking at the sign and where it was positioned, and looking at the area that had that it was influencing. So this language inserted in the landscape, and then you look at the landscape around the sign, and there was just some kind of tension or irony or almost ludicrous between those two. So in fact, the one that's up, the example that's up, Limite Municipale, is about the, so in 1997, I went around Quebec City. I had a very detailed map of the city, and I went to every road that crossed the municipal boundaries, and I found a sign that just says Quebec. So it's not the boundary of the province of Quebec, it's for the city of Quebec. And everything in front of the sign, between me and the sign, is outside the city of Quebec, and everything behind the sign is in the city of Quebec, and therefore subject to their municipal laws and so on. So let's just look at a couple of those, keeping that in mind. Oh, that's the last one. Maybe we could go back a couple. So yeah, that one. So the neighbors of these people on the right are not living in the city of Quebec. And everyone behind that sign is in the city of Quebec. And let's just maybe pick this one. Again, it's out in the middle of nowhere, really. And another one. That one. Oh yeah, I like that one. Again, where the municipal boundaries are drawn, I just find really interesting dynamic. And I also photographed the city limits of Ottawa and Hamilton right before those two cities amalgamated. So I got the city boundaries before those cities did a big land grab and extended their boundaries. The ones about Ottawa are particularly ironic. Okay, so this is Hamilton, Ottawa. Okay, so let's look at those. Population 1 million. Oh, you just have one. Oh, well, the other ones say population 750,000. And the other ones say population 324,000. And these were all at exactly the same time in the year 2000, just before Ottawa amalgamated a whole bunch of territory around the city. The one that's up on the screen says population 1 million. Okay, and that's from the city of Hamilton, who also did a big amalgamation in the year 2000. What else have we got for signs of our time? Or did you have another question you wanted to ask me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't even worry. I'm so fascinated by just this conversation and how you're exposing all these. But yeah, feel free if you want to talk even more about. I'm so happy to do so. I'm so curious about this kind of body of work. But I guess more questions that I had, again, relate to sort of the way that you use composition in your photography. I really like that. I don't know, how do you compose your pictures? Because obviously a lot of these pictures are, you talk a lot about these spaces that you live with and that you're there firm, taking pictures of these, almost in between these two municipal lines, but how do you live with a place that's like a transitory space, like a highway? How are you kind of highlighting that within your pictures? I don't know. I'm so curious about that.
Actually, that was tricky. Actually, I had to
Yeah.
park beside a huge highway, get out of the car, and all these photographs, I count 10 paces back. So actually, the title is Looking at the City of Hamilton from 10 paces outside the municipal boundary. So I'm walking 10 paces outside because the sign is right on the boundary. So it was tricky doing it right beside a big highway. Yeah,
I bet.
Yeah. I had to get my nerve up. But I said, I got to do it. I got to get it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating. So is there a reason, I mean, is the 10 steps back, is that, I mean, is there anything to do, why is it 10 spaces back? Does that have anything, or?
It just seemed a kind of a distance, but not a big distance. Yeah.
Okay, fascinating.
I don't know, another practical solution, really.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
You know what, we love
yeah.
that. So I kind of wanted to ask about, so when we're looking at these pictures, again, I really, really enjoy kind of the way that you're framing them and kind of having this composition. And yeah, I don't know, I think, so I guess I just am really fascinating, and I kind of want to pick your mind about this, even though I've asked you this already. But so how are highways or roads, places that are kind of often taken with the intention of going from point A to point B, how do those spaces kind of become places that are sites that are being intervened, I guess? Because I know you're talking a lot about, how spaces, how you are informed of land and human presence within a particular space. So what is your relationship with a transitory space like that, like a highway or road?
Yeah, well, I guess, again, it's the irony of this continuous high-speed freeway. Suddenly, it's got a boundary crossing it, right? And, well, I was directed to all these places by the maps of the cities, and where the boundary lines were, that's where I had to go. And so sometimes, of course, there was a big highway crossing the boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. I love the way that you even just took the minute to, step out on the side of the road and just take the pictures. So it's so powerful and so beautiful.
Well,
and
it's a place,
striking.
you would never stop otherwise.
Yeah, right. That's what
Unless something
like.
bad happens.
I know. I mean, that's what makes them so striking and so beautiful. Is the way that you
thanks.
kind of position it and have it in this kind of space that maybe you wouldn't necessarily always
No,
wait to stop, but
exactly.
it's so beautiful. I think we all kind of think about that at one point. I wonder if anything meaningful has happened in this side of the highway or
Yeah.
something. So really, really.
Well, that leads to the questions about the place. Should we talk about that one?
So yes, I have a few more questions just about, or if you're, yeah. So I have a few more questions just about some of the other places before we move on to that. If
Oh,
that's
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So another question that I sort of had was, so I guess this is a perfect time to talk about it since we're looking at a gallery. So I'm curious about the way that you intervene within the landscape and then the gallery. So could you speak more about how you create sort of the pictures and how you categorize them in a gallery space?
Oh dear. What do you mean by categorize them?
I guess, how do you, choose, I guess, how do you choose how to exhibit them, and how do you choose kind of the display and the layout? And sort of, I guess there is sort of a almost categorization of the images.
Okay, well, the first thing that comes to mind is actually going to refer back to sleeping places.
Okay, yeah.
Because the very first time I showed those photographs, it was in the Arts and Culture Center in Memorial University Art Gallery in the Arts and Culture Center in St. John's. I had them placed not in a grid. I had them placed along the wall, one after the other after the other. And I'd be in the gallery watching people. They didn't know who I was, that's great. Watching people coming in to look at them. And I'll tell you what I saw. People just walked past them and looked at them over their shoulder. People did not stop and look at each photograph one by one, which is, of course, what an artist's intention probably would be. So, hanging them in a grid, a person can stand in front of the grid and actually look at the photographs one by one, which is what my intention was.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Wow.
So this now is an image of 100 photographs from Nova Scotia, all of a particular road sign. And this set was in my retrospective exhibition. So this is how it was installed when it was in the Rooms Provincial Art Gallery in St. John's. So now we're going to look. Okay, so I found 100 photographs of this particular sign in Nova Scotia. Good, you get it. You get it. So what I want to say about these, and I'll give you a signal when to change them. Okay, so as you've probably sensed already, I photograph landscapes, but I'm really suspicious of landscape photographs. I wonder what assumptions or conclusions we are led to by the look of places, and what meanings are not visible. There could be an infinite number of questions about a place, questions about things that are invisible and therefore cannot be photographed. This is interesting and challenging territory that I worked my way into. Almost, you could say, an inversion of my purposes. I always wanted to be an artist because I was so taken by what things look like. One time when I showed these signs, someone thought they were so improbable. They asked me if I'd carried a question mark sign around Nova Scotia with me and set it up in different places to photograph. You probably know what it means, but it's a sign that indicates a tourist information center. So this is why the title of this piece is Questions About the Place. But also, I have a lot of questions about places.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, obviously this is one of the pictures or the series that really also stuck out to me because obviously the question mark is so polarizing within this picture and the landscape, and having that man-made versus the nature kind of aspect and the contrast between the two is just so striking.
Well, it was the perfect sign for me.
Right,
As
yeah.
someone who photographs landscapes, it was perfect.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know, it's
Yeah.
so beautiful, and I love the way that sometimes it stands by itself, and then sometimes it's with a sign,
Yeah.
which is so beautiful, and I really really like it. And so just to I have kind of one more final question, but I know that you went within your series, I know that you went back to Alberta, so you did so you did points of interest and
Yeah. Points of interest. This is from Saskatchewan,
Yes.
1999.
yes. So I guess I'm more so curious. So did you ever want to? I mean, because I wanted to touch on the fact that you went to Alberta twice for the series. So when you went back in 2000, I believe.
In 2000, I
nine-
did Walking and No Walking.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then before that, you had already visited Alberta to do a series. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
did you ever want to reshoot any of the places that you had visited previously or not?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, of course, I wouldn't have gone all the way back to Alberta to reshoot something I'd already photographed. So, no, but I do that in the Boreal Poetry Garden with
Yes.
things, yeah.
Wow.
Have you
that's
got
amazing.
any of the points of interest individual? Yeah,
The ones from Saskatchewan?
there, the back, no, there, okay, look at that. It's the
Love it.
sign that says point of interest, and maybe show some of the others. Point of interest, this is in Saskatchewan with this continuous, prairie landscape. I think there's a couple more. Point of interest, historic. And I thought, you know what? You could put this sign anywhere and it would be true. So I was wondering, okay, who decided this and why? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
That's beautiful. Well, Marlene, thank you so much for discussing Signs of Our Times. It's such a striking photo series, and I'm such a fan of it, and so I really appreciate this in-depth kind of speaking of it. And speaking of points of interest, I think we should move on to another point of interest. So I'd love for you to pass it to Sasha, and you guys can talk about the Boreal
Sasha?
Poetry
Okay.
Gardens.
Hi, Marlene.
Hi. So to introduce the Boreal Poetry Garden work, I'm going to give a little history of myself.
Okay.
So in 2002, I moved from downtown St. John's. I lived in that dark green house there that was built in 1893, which was the year after the Great Fire. So St. John's burned down in 1892, and you could see how easily that would happen. All these wooden houses attached one to the other. And the front doors just open onto the sidewalk. There is no property as such, well, except what's underneath the house. Although some of the downtown houses do have yards in the back. So I moved from that house to this contemporary open plan house out in Portugal Cove. I figure if you're going to move, you might as well make it different, right? And it's surrounded by old growth boreal forest and has a stream running through it called the Blast Hole Pond River. So for the past 24 years, this place has been my studio. It's actually my studio. And it's the source of my subject matter, and it's become the platform for public multidisciplinary events. So half of my 47 years working as an environmental artist has been done in this one place. So I'm always an artist in residence. I don't have to travel anywhere else to be an artist in residence. So I call it the Boreal Poetry Garden. It's boreal forest, and boreal just means northern, as in Aurora Borealis, the northern lights. And the word comes from the Greek god of the north wind, whose name was Boreas. How much more, do you want me to say a bit more maybe about the?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I call it the Boreal Poetry Garden because I started writing poems. And I started writing really short haiku-like poems, but then my poems got longer. And again, as a practical solution, I thought, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to invite people to come here, and I'll read the poems out loud to them, right in the spots where the words arose. So I started holding these events, poetry walks, I guess you could call them. And the poems are site-specific. I only read them in the spots where the words arose, because the whole environment is part of the poem. It's the best part of the poem. Between 2005 and 2019, I held over 40 thematic events, which were attended by over 900 visitors. But I always have to qualify that. It wasn't 900 different people. Some people came every summer, but I counted them twice, just the same. So these walks were based on themes such as the 5 senses and the 4 elements, and I invited different natural historians to collaborate with me. So this is a boreal ecologist. I had a geologist, a marine bird biologist, a mycologist, and a geographer who studies the role of fire in the ecology of the boreal forest, which unfortunately is getting more and more timely. I also invited performance artists who performed in relationship to the terrain, such as acoustic musicians, and a fire juggler when the theme was fire. We had lots of buckets of water around. There's some simple documentary videos of these events on the Live Arch page of my website. And when I say simple, there's no voiceover, there's no background music, nothing. It's just simply documenting what went on some of these walks and the contributions by the people I invited. And there's an internet project, a locative internet project with video poems, which I call a virtual walk of the Boreal Poetry Garden, because not everybody can come there. So the way it works is, that's my homepage. You just click on the play button, which brings you to this aerial photograph. So on the right are the Blast Hole Ponds. That's Conception Bay. And then you click on that box, and it brings you to an close-up aerial photograph. That's the house. And on the right are very short video poems. If you click on one of them, a dot will appear on the aerial photograph to tell you that's where that poem came from. Okay, so I'll keep going in my bit, and then you can ask me. Okay. So my art practice has become less and less oriented to art institutions and more concerned with gestures that address the land. The walking and memory mapping, which is, I think, what you're going to ask me some questions about. So this is a community art project with multidisciplinary performers and memory mapping, which I told you I started working with 40 years ago in northern Labrador. And so in 2024, I invited all the grade 4 classes from the local elementary school to come one by one for a guided poetry walk. I also had some of the performers who had performed before for the public events to perform for the children. And at the end of each walk, I gave them some good drawing paper and I asked them all to draw a memory map of their walk. So 200 children came. And let's just see. So there's the kids on the walk crossing. That's the Blast Pond River. As you can see, it's actually just a stream, but that's the real name on it. So I read them some of my nature poems, my site-specific nature poems, and each class experienced a different art form by the artists who had come before for the public. So that's Christine Carter on clarinet and Florian Höfner on accordion, and they played, it was actually a trio. They played an improvised music with the waterfall. So it was a trio because the waterfall was as much a part of the music with the improvisation that they played. This is Jack Eastwood. He made a shadow puppet theater out of an old suitcase that had belonged to his mother. And he made these cutout paper shadow puppets of local wildlife, and I had poems about the local wildlife. This is Louise Moyes, who's a contemporary dancer, and she led the children in movements at the bottom of this volcanic rock formation, which is 650 million years old. So on the left, they're doing the magma, the underground magma, and then she shoots up like the volcano. So the kids followed along with this. And I led them in some improvised drumming on the bridge in relationship to the sound of the river. So when we got back after the walk, I had tables and chairs all set up, and I gave them all this drawing paper. And as I said, I had them all draw a memory map of the walk they had just did. I have 200 of these memory map drawings, and they're all maps of exactly the same place, and there's no two even remotely similar. So one of the students, Ella, described the process of drawing her memory map perfectly. She said, "My pencil is me. I'm walking the path. I hike my way through my imagination." I'm just going to show you some of the memory maps that the kids drew. And it's amazing how different they all are, considering they're all maps of the same place. Grade 4, so they were 9 or 10 years old. So, alternative mapping. I started out at the beginning talking about alternative mapping when I showed the Mi'kmaq map of the island of Newfoundland. This kind of alternative mapping can include phenomena beyond the spatial information represented on so-called neutral conventional maps. And some of the invisible dimensions of the place that appeared on these memory maps include smells, sounds, tastes, stories, wildlife, emotions, sunlight, and the weather. Over the past 47 years, my artwork has evolved from solitary, ephemeral, first-person gestures in the landscape to projects done with collaborators and in community, It's almost the opposite of what I was doing at the beginning. And these memory maps illustrate something that I've always believed. The arts, and I mean by that all the arts, can help us become better observers of our own experience. If you want to ask me some questions about this work, and then we'll put that quote up, Darah, but not yet. Oh, you've put it up already. Okay, all right. We'll get to that. Okay.
So I do have a couple questions, and I'm so intrigued by your memory mapping. You've been working many, many years and into memory mapping practice. I'm curious about, I'm curious about your connection. Can you tell us a story about your boreal forest? What does that mean to you as a home? Like,
Oh, I'm so attached to it now. I've been there 24 years. I'm very, very attached to it. Wow. It's a very special place to me now as I've gotten familiar with it. When I first moved there, the forest was just sort of a blur of indistinct vegetation.
Mhm.
And over the years, I've become familiar with it, one tree, one wildflower, one stone at a time. And in fact, we haven't included that here, but I have a series of my hand on trees. The series is called Larch, Spruce, Fir, Birch Hand, and it spans 19 years. And, well, in fact, it's getting published as a whole, the whole series, which is 154 photographs. Impulse B is publishing that book. It's going to get launched at my exhibition at Paul Petros. But anyway, we'll get to that. Okay.
Fantastic. I'm curious about the memory
Oh,
mapping.
you got it. Okay.
I'm curious about the memory mapping. You have collected memory mapping drawings through workshop. Even when there aren't exhibit or turned into an artwork,
Right.
what do they mean to you?
Okay, I don't keep those. I've done a lot of actual finished artworks that include memory maps that were drawn by other people, but I also lead a lot of memory mapping workshops with all ages. I can take from 8 years old right up to senior citizens. And people, I just say, think of a place that's very important to you. It could be where you grew up, it could be where you live now, it could be like your country house, it could be your grandparents' house. Just pick a place that's important to you and draw a map of it. And I don't consider these workshops a success unless someone cries. I'm serious. Places, they have discovered psychologically that places are just as important to people, as your family, as anyone who's really important to you. A place is just as important. And there's a term now for places that get destroyed, either by forest fires or floods or any other kind of human-caused disaster. The word is solastalgia, and it's the terrible emotional anguish that we have if a place that's important to us gets destroyed, or say you are a refugee and you had to leave a place that matters to you. How did I get onto that? Tell me what you asked me.
I was curious about your workshop, even if they're not exhibits or it's not into their artwork. What do they mean to you?
Oh, what they mean? Well, I love seeing the maps that other people draw of these places that are important to them, and of course they take them home, right? I don't keep them except for these kids' memory maps, because there's another book in progress right now by Memorial University Press about the project I did with the children, and I've got 6 scholars from around the world writing essays about that. So I had to keep their maps because they all had to get scanned for the book and everything. And besides, none of them asked for me back for their map. So I'm keeping them. Anyway, when I do the memory mapping workshops with other groups, part of the workshop is we break into smaller groups of 3 or 4 people, and everyone presents their map to the rest of their little subgroup. And as I say, as soon as people start talking about these places that are important to them, they all often always choke up. And places are so important to us. Yeah.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm also curious about in your photography, presence often feels more connected to land and memory than to people. How do you think about present and absence when you're making these images?
Oh, good. Well, there are certain ones that are about the absence of my presence, like the sleeping places.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And there's other work I've done where I spread paper out in different places in where I live. And this work was actually shown at Paul Petrel's a couple years ago, and I scribbled around my body. So what you get is a profile of myself. There we go. Okay. And when I'm lying there, I photograph looking straight up. And then I also photograph where I was lying down. So that's actually very related to the sleeping places. But this is 2020, so this is like 40 years later. So now I'm starting to feel I'm going around in circles. Anyway, so that's like a super extended version of the sleeping places, about my own body on the ground in different places where I'm living in the patch of boreal forest. Yeah.
I'm curious, with this drawing, who drew this for you?
I did it myself.
You did it yourself?
It was hard, yeah. And this, don't do it yet, but when we get to the quote, I'm specifically thinking of this work. Yeah.
I am very intrigued by how incredible, it looks incredible drawing, even if you're having a hard time
It was
doing
hard. Well, it was hard to reach my toes. And also, I'm out there in the woods. Every once in a while, my neighbor, Freddie, from across the road, just shows up, right? And I'm lying there on the paper doing this drawing, and I'm thinking, oh my God, if Freddie shows, and Freddie, you have to know Freddie, he's like a traditional rural Newfoundland man, okay? If Freddie shows up now, he's gonna think I'm completely out of my mind, but he may already think that from what little bit he knows. Yeah.
Wow. I'm curious a little bit more about the boreal poetry garden.
Good.
Thinking about the boreal poetry garden, how has your way of listening to and working with the forest changed over time?
Oh, well, I've definitely gotten more and more familiar with the place. And as I say, there's certain trees. I mean, there's thousands of trees in this 6-acre patch of boreal, from everything, from new little, I mean, it's still a tree, even though it's only maybe a few inches high, up to huge spruce trees, really, really tall. And those, unfortunately, are the ones that are catching I lost a lot of trees this fall in the big windstorms because the live trees are full of needles and they catch the wind more, right? So I've got, those things have happened. And in the series of photographs of my hand on trees, the same tree is photographed after 11 years, and some of them have, okay, so this is an example. That tree was blown down in a hurricane. So I just photographed my hand in the empty space where the tree was. Just spending time and becoming more and more attached to the place, more familiar with it. I took a boreal ecology course at Memorial University to find out as much as I possibly could about the place. And when I invite those natural historians to collaborate with me on the walks, like a mycologist who told us that the whole boreal forest only exists because of the mycorrhizal connections underground. So I'm learning about the place by having these natural historians come and collaborate with me on the walks. Like, I'm just soaking it in. Yeah. I don't think you can be an environmental artist without learning something about the ecology.
I agree.
It can't just be pretty pictures of places. You have to learn the science.
Yes.
Yeah.
It reminds me the quote that you have, which I want to read it to you. I came across a quote of yours that stayed really with me, and it starts with everything changing, therefore there is loss.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious about that. Can you explain what the idea of like your memory mapping works?
Oh, well, I was going to say with the thing of loss, I mean, living with this much nature around me, I kind of have to get used to a lot of loss. It's not just the trees blowing down. There's all kinds of loss in nature. With the memory maps, it's not so much the memory maps in my, well, it is with the Labrador series actually, because most of the elders I talked to told me about a place where they used to live on the coast. At one time, there was just one or two families in each bay, and the bays are named after the families. So Chesley Webb and Rosie Webb lived in Webb's Bay. It was called Webb's Bay. They were the only family there. And so the elderly people that I interviewed in 1988, they were the very last Labrador people who lived on the coast in those bays, just one or two families, because they all moved into communities. And so they have this huge nostalgia for where, and I mean, the lives were really hard living in those bays. They had no electricity, no running water. Rosie Webb, whose map is up on the screen right now, had 13 children with no running water and no electricity.
Wow.
Yeah. I just heard the most fantastic stories just sitting across from the kitchen table talking to these people. And it was like poetry was just flowing out of them, talking about these places that they had to leave behind.
Wow. No,
There she is. There's Rosie Webb. Yeah, in Nain, of course, that's the community that she lived in, moved to, which was the closest to where they lived in Webb's Bay. Yeah.
Wow, she looks incredible with the space, interior space around it.
Yeah.
I just want to question you a little bit more about your photography play and process. Can you explain to me about your photography, how you play in the process of it?
Well, for one thing, I don't have a big fancy camera. I have a very user-friendly, not exactly point and shoot, but I can't carry around a big, giant, heavy camera. It would limit me in what I could do because most of what my work is, it's quite physically demanding, where I'm trying to get around in landscape and water. So, and then, like I said, it's just practical solutions. I don't try to do anything, too spectacular. Yeah.
Not imperfection, not everything is perfect.
Oh gosh, no.
And I just want to conclude a final last question. I wanted to end with this. How do you describe your relationship with the land? How do you navigate with the ownership? Are you an owner? Or as just a custodian?
I definitely think of myself more like a custodian. You may have noticed I've never used the word property this whole time when I talk about that place. How can you own a volcanic lava formation that's 650 million years old?
Wow.
How can you own a tree? So that word property is very totally from the settler colonial history. Indigenous people never considered that they owned land. And so our concept of property and property lines and all that, it's something I really try to avoid using that word at all, and I haven't come up with a good substitute. I say my place. Sometimes I'll say like the place I inhabit, because I do have that kind of actual physical relationship with the place. But yeah, mostly I just think of, I'm just the one who's looking after it for the time being.
Wow. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Thank you.
Yes, a round of applause for the lovely Marlene. Marlene, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come on down here and chat with us for a little bit. You have such a wonderful, whimsy mixed with quite a scientific approach, which I really appreciate. From your works in Sleeping Places to your recent collection coming up, I think it's in May, from May to June 6th at the Paul Petro Contemporary Gallery. It's such a lovely chronology of your work. We did put together a gift for you to appreciate you for your time, and the lovely Marketa will hand that off.
We are all so enamored by your memory mapping work, and I think I speak for everyone. It really touched us very deeply, maybe the most of all your work. So we decided to actually make our own personal memory maps and collectively kind of hand them into your hands to take back to Portugal Cove. And we're so happy, really, I have no words for your coming to spend time with us, and for all your time, your generosity, and the land that you brought to us through your talking. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to everyone for coming tonight, spending time with us.